it's teacher Janelle. I am going to present to you today grammar lesson. The conditionals. Yes, conditionals from the word condition. Might it be? Word of caution, it is a very simple word, but I don't think it is simple indeed. So there is complexity in it, but I'm going to help you out. I'm going to guide you through it. So, as usual, I have prepared a matrix for you. Check this out.
Oh no!
I know, that's a lot to take in, but I know this is going to be something that is very helpful. I always believe that grammar need not to be memorized. So, actually, the reason why I create a matrix, I create tables for grammar lessons, is for me to see the bigger picture. And I want you to see it too. Because I may not be able to understand it. I may not know how to present it to you. There is no other way I know how to present it to you without confusing you with the rules. So I want to show you first the entirety of it. Yes, this matrix is your guide. So I'm showing you everything. But I'm not saying you take in everything. We're going to talk about it part by part. Grammar, again, need not to be memorized. It is something that is to be applied. Because when we speak, we think of ideas, not grammar. Because ideas are more important than grammar. That is why when we talk about grammar, we practice it. So that when we are going to do communication, we only think about ideas and not grammar. However, grammar will just fall into place because I believe that we have this pattern of thought. And once we already know grammar without memorizing it, just plainly familiarizing it because of constant use, everything will just fall into place. Our pattern of thought will guide us in how we're going to express our ideas clearly. Conditional. This is part of grammar, which presents a situation and talks about the result of such a situation, be it real or unreal. If you're going to say real, we know what real means. So this is something that exists, something that is not imaginary, something that is real. I don't know how else I'm going to explain what real is. Unreal conditionals. Unreal conditionals, these are situations that are imagined, hypothetical. They could be assumed, not necessarily true. Not necessarily true. Now let's take a look at the matrix. What do you see there? We have there the types of conditionals. We have 5, 0 conditional, first, second, third, and the mixed conditionals. Then you have the usage, of course. We should know what grammar is used for so that we would truly understand what it is that we are using it for or what it is that we are studying it for. And the if clause, this is where you have the situation. This is where the situation is found in the if clause. So what is an if clause? The if clause is a clause that is started with the word if. That is started with a conjunction if. However, it's not just if. Sometimes we can use when. So if and when could either be used. Now you see the result column. The result column, this is the outcome of the situation in the if clause. Then of course, the last column, it says there, answer the question. So what might that be? So this actually are questions I prepared for you to answer so that you'll be able to use the format of the type of conditional that we are going to talk about. So we are going to learn grammar, learn conditionals by answering questions. I hope this is really gonna help. Now let's begin with the 0 conditional. This is what they call stating the obvious because it presents general truth. Or it could also be used to give instructions. Let's see. So if you say, if you heat ice, it melts. Of course it does. We all know that when you heat ice, it melts. That is an obvious situation. This is also a real situation. So that means 0 conditional is a real conditional. When you work, you get paid, of course. The purpose of why we work, why we toil every day is for us to have a living, to fend for a family. The purpose of us working is for us to get paid. To give instructions, if you are not sure, call Sam. That's not a general truth, teacher. Yes, that's not a general truth, but that is an instruction, and that is real. What makes that real? Not because it's general, but because it is specific. You're giving specific instructions that is useful in the now. So that is zero conditional. Okay, now the form. Let's take a look at the form. In the if clause, we use the base form. Why do I use the base form in the S form for simple present? I usually use that because I want to specify what form of the verb it is that's used. When we say the base form, that's the verb that is not added with any inflection. If I say the S form, that is the verb that is added with suffix S, or the change Y to I and add ES, that type of verb. In the result column, still we're using the simple present, simple present. So if you heat ice, it melts. Heat, that's the base form. Melts, that's the S form. If you heat ice, it melts. You're using both simple present tenses. When you work, you get paid. Work, base form. Get, base form. It's both simple present tenses. If you are not sure, call Sam. So since this is giving instructions, of course, we're going to be using imperatives. What are imperatives again? These are verbs that are used to give instructions, to give a command, a request. So this is when you're going to use those verbs. They are called the imperatives. If you're not sure, call Sam. Okay, let's see this template. So I have a template. If we're going to answer the question and write it on the template, what happens when it rains? We are going to start with the general truth. So we're going to state the obvious now. What happens when it rains? Well, when it rains, it pours. Obviously, it does. When it rains, it pours. Rains, that's the S form of the verb. Pours, another S form of the verb. And it's a very obvious statement that is a general truth. I might rephrase the question for instructions. What to do when it rains? What to do when it rains? So if I'm going to answer that, when it rains, close the windows. When it rains, close the windows. Okay, that's rains, simple present, close, simple present. I'm using the imperative close.
Sana all.